I live about 20 miles from the city in which I work. I live out in the country, and about a short walking distance from my house is a highway, and on the corner is a 24/7 gas station. Last week, Saturday night, I went by there right before midnight to grab some Cajun peanuts. I see one car parked on the side, which is normal. Usually just a guy working and rarely any customers at this time. Do you ever feel this dread overcome you, like you just know something is wrong? Well, I walk in and don't see anyone. Nobody behind the counter or in the store. So I take my time and assume they're in the bathroom or step to the back of the store. Surely they heard the chime on the door when I came in. I'm feeling weird and uncomfortable, so I wait a minute even though it seemed like forever. So I call out, hello? Anyone here? I wait a minute more and put the peanuts down and walk out the door. I checked the car parked on the side and there wasn't anything troubling. I even glanced on the back side of the store and there was nobody. I'm pretty uncomfortable, so I just call the police. They show up about 10 to 15 minutes later and they search the place. They find the cashier dead in the men's bathroom, beaten to death. They called in backup, asked me to recap what I experienced, and then I went home. That's not even the fucked up part. So I get home and my dog is in the front yard pissing and just staring at me, and my front door is cracked open. My heart is racing, so I grab my dog and head back to the gas station and let the police know. They send one of the guys to search my house. Nothing is stolen or out of place, but there was a sign of forced entry. So this was last week, and about 5 hours ago I get a call from my brother who works for the county sheriff's office. Supposedly they pulled the camera footage, and at about 10 minutes before I walked into the store, someone came in, started punching on the cashier, and then dragged him into the bathroom. On the footage you can see me walk in and look around and call out, and then you see me walk out and check the car and walk to my vehicle and make a call. About the time I'm in the vehicle, the alleged murderer walks out of the bathroom and sneaks out of the back door, and before leaving the view of the camera, he takes off in the general direction of my house. Fortunately, my wife was out with some friends watching Beauty and the Beast, but I'm convinced that I missed a murderer at the gas station and that he broke into my house. This week I had a new security system installed alongside a new front door, but I'm pretty sure whoever did this is still out there somewhere. This happened about a month ago, and just something I need to get off my chest. I recently moved out of my parents' house into a tiny apartment in a tiny rural town and 3 hours away. I had been away for the weekend and was driving home on a Sunday night when I decided to stop for gas at the gas station about a block away from my house. It was dark, but the gas station was fairly lit. On my way to the gas station, I had passed a man riding a recumbent bike. And as I had pulled into the pumps, I realized that he had followed me. Now, this didn't raise any alarm bells yet. The convenience store attached to the gas station is very popular for snacks and also rents movies out to the small town. As I'm going in to pay cash for my gas, I hold the door open for Bicycle Man. He makes very intense eye contact but walks in and goes to browse snacks. I pay the clerk and head back out to my car to begin pumping gas. As I get the nozzle situated and am just standing there waiting for my tank to fill, I feel that crawling sensation you get when someone is watching you. I turned around to survey the parking lot. The Bicycle Man was standing in the shadows next to the gas station right by his bike, staring me down. Immediately, a cold wave washes over me and I hurry to finish up my transaction. I was due change and the money I had given the clerk for gas, so I walked back inside, hoping that when I came out, he would be gone. However, he too entered the store right after I did and was now making a big show of looking at the newspapers by the door. I get my change and decide to just loiter in the store in hopes that he'll get bored and leave. For the life of me, I don't know why I didn't tell the clerk I was being followed. But I spend about 15 or so minutes just walking up and down the aisles looking at bags of chips and random snacks. Finally, I think that it's safe to leave. I didn't see him anywhere. I head out the door and make it a few steps to the parking lot before I hear the door open behind me. As I glance back, I recognize the Bicycle Man and rush to my car. As I'm hurrying to get in, turn it on, buckle up, and put my change away, I can see him standing in the alleyway next to the store, rushing to get on his bike. I finally just threw everything on the passenger seat and just peeled out of the gas station as fast as possible. Now, I should mention that I had only moved here about a month before and didn't know the area very well aside from getting into my apartment. And I have a bright red car with out-of-state license plates that stick out like a sore thumb in this tiny town. I realized that he absolutely saw what direction I was headed in and he could easily just drive around and see my car park outside of my apartment. So in my panic, I ended up parking in the lot across the street from my place and waiting for my heart to stop racing. I was parked there for maybe about 2 minutes before I realized that he could see me there just as easily and approached the parked car and knocked. I was so spooked I ended up driving around for 15 to 20 minutes before finding the police station and waiting for them to come out and talk to me in the parking lot. Bicycle Man was never confronted by the police, but I sometimes see him riding up and down the main street. This happened a couple of months ago. My husband and I live in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle. It was probably about 8 p.m. when my husband decided to take the car and fuel it up at the closest gas station from our house. It's not abnormal, and I decided to stay at home with our, at the time, 4-month-old child. My husband had been gone for quite a while and I started to get nervous, as I always do. Most women would think their man was cheating or something, but I am always convinced he is dead or super hurt. But I couldn't call him because I saw that he had forgotten his phone at home. Well, eventually he comes home in a panic. He is always playing this macho nothing can hurt me kind of personality, but this time he was visibly shaken and horrified. That's when he explained what had happened. He pulled up to the gas station as they were closing the convenience store part of it and noticed a weird guy lingering around. Of course, thinking he is invincible, he chooses to pump his gas anyways because he doesn't feel like he should leave just because there is a creepy guy. And obviously creepy guy approaches him and was shaking and had his hand in his pocket. He starts off by mentioning that my husband must have been doing well considering he's driving a Lexus. Then he told my husband that he needed a ride to a forest park just up the road from the gas station because his car broke down and that he needed to get back to it because he's a pastor at a Korean church. My husband was skeptical immediately given this guy's appearance and the fact that he was clearly Caucasian. So my husband told him, "No, it's just up the road, just walk." The guy kept pleading and my husband stood his ground. The creepy guy then asks if he can borrow my husband's phone to make a call, to which my husband told him that he forgot his phone at home, which was true. But the guy wouldn't believe him and challenged him by asking, "Then what's in your left pocket?" To which my husband responds with, "My keys." Then he asked about his right pocket and my husband said, "My gun." The guy kind of laughed, not believing my husband. Mind you, my husband is 23 and Chinese, so he looked really young and vulnerable. The guy asked for a ride again and my husband said no once again as he was finishing up pumping his gas. The creepy guy went to the other side of the car and tried opening it up to get inside. My husband asked him what the hell he was doing and to back off. Then the guy starts coming at my husband while holding on to something in his pocket. That is when my husband made the judgment to pull out his gun and aim it at the guy. The guy stopped immediately and threw his hands up in the air and backed up slowly while my husband told him to get away. The most chilling thing this man said was, "You're a very smart man. Good job." And he kept backing away slowly. My husband sped off with the gun still pointed the whole time. I'm so thankful that I stayed home with our daughter, and now I'm extra paranoid when he's a little late. I'm not entirely sure what the guy intended, if he wanted to rob my husband or steal the car, but he was clearly going through some drug withdrawals or on something, and his last statement just confirmed that he was up to no good. I recently drove from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Buffalo, New York with my cat. The ride was long, but we were making decent time for the most part. She and I had gotten up toward right before you get to New York. It was around 5:30 p.m., but that also meant it was around pitch black out too. We had only stopped once to get something at McDonald's and I drank their iced tea quickly to try to stay awake. I definitely had to pee. I didn't want to leave my cat in the car, so I put her leash on and we walked into the gas station. I said, "Do you mind if we use the restroom here?" The man behind the counter said sure, and she and I entered the bathroom. She sat on the counter while I did my thing. The store wasn't empty there, and there were some dudes around browsing for honey buns, tasty cake, and cheaper cigarettes than those in New York. There was a woman talking to the counter guy up front. She was probably like a regular based on their seemingly familiarity with each other. My cat jumped about a foot when we heard the doorknob rattle. I laughed and said, "Sorry, it's occupied right now." My cat is a trained animal. She is trained to handle people, stimulating situations, crowds, and relatively loud noise. I looked over at her after the jump, and her tail was as full as could be, and she got low and slipped up to her favorite position on my shoulders. She dug into my hair with her nails and did her little grumble at me that she does when she wants to be let outside. The doorknob rattled again, and she reached toward the door like in a quick way, like a strike. It's still occupied," I called out, but I wasn't laughing this time. We then heard someone speak. It was a man's voice, and it honestly kind of made my blood run cold. They were speaking a cousin of my native language. They were saying, "Should I grab her when she comes out?" And in my native tongue, grab doesn't really have the multiple connotations like it does in English. They used what was similar to take as far as I could tell through the door. "No, the cashier is right there. We can go stand outside. I think her car is the blue one." My cat did her angry grumble bug sound, and I tried to pet her to reassure her. There weren't any windows in this bathroom, and my car was parked unwisely around the side of the lot. I parked it a little way from the lights because I had a lot of stuff in it and didn't want the items to be lit. It was not the blue one. We heard their steps retreat, and we sat there for what felt like a really long time. We both jumped when we heard a knock on the door. "Come out quickly and my girlfriend will lead you through the back to your car." They're standing out by the pumps. It was the counter guy and who I thought was the regular. I opened the door and she ushered me to the back. She opened the door and I could see my car about 20 feet away. I wanted to sprint, but I remembered I used my key thing to set the alarm. I unlocked the car with my keys and the alarm went off. I threw myself into the driver's seat, unlocked it with the key thing, and quickly pressed the button to lock it again. I felt my heart in my throat as I threw the car into reverse and got the fuck out of there. Oh, and on my way out, I noticed the guy standing near the blue car on the other side of the lot, trying to nonchalantly smoke. They didn't even know I got out. At about 8 p.m. last night, I was walking with a friend of mine, Sally, about a mile to the closest cafe. We're both girls in our early 20s and neither of us have our own cars, and Sally didn't have her Opal card, so walking was our only option. It's summer over here, so it was still fairly well lit, and we were walking down the main road, so we weren't too concerned. We finally arrive at this cafe and sit down. I was paying, but I only had my credit card, and sure enough, it was cash only. Sally was on the phone when I got back from the counter, so I just gestured for her to stay put and guard the spot while I went to get the cash out. This is my home suburb, so I know there's no ATMs around, and my best bet is probably a gas station about a block away. I'm doing a light jog so I don't keep Sally waiting when a balding, sweating guy, probably in his late 40s with a tank top and no shoes, comes pacing behind me as I pass the corner of the block. He walked behind me for about 100 meters. I didn't really think much of it. The gas station was the next building along, and it seemed like he had just come out of a nice suburban house along the street. And it wasn't the witching hour, so I just assumed he was going to the station like me. He didn't even come across my mind as I entered the tiny convenience store, nor did he follow me in. In my peripheral view, I saw him walk past the door and out of sight. I looked around for an ATM that they sometimes have inside. No such luck, so I go up to this man in his 30s at the desk and reluctantly ask if they're able to do cash out. He smiles and says of course, and then he asks, "Is he with you?" I have no idea who he's talking about at first, and then he points to the man from earlier, pacing around outside the store. Keep in mind, he didn't look all menacing. He wasn't going back and forth, just outside the door. He was drifting in the space outside, from the pavement and the gas pumps to the storefront, seemingly aimlessly. I assumed he was on drugs. I tell the clerk no, not thinking much of it at all, and he says, "Oh, well, he was staring at you before. I thought he might have been your dad." I laugh it off. I honestly wasn't concerned at all. He was still ambling around outside and I couldn't imagine him having a fixed gaze on anything. I thank the clerk for the cash, but before I turn away to leave, he says, "Just wait and see if he leaves first." We wait for a few minutes in silence and the guy begins to pace back and forth directly against the front wall of the store, looking straight ahead and never into the store. It still looked like the man was just on a drug-induced amble and seemed harmless. Not once did I catch his gaze, so I figured it would be safe to just slip out the door and walk back to the cafe in a fairly bright light of dusk, especially since Sally was texting me at this point asking, "Where are you?" I thank the guy at the desk once again for his concern, assure him that I don't know the guy and I'm not involved in some weird scheme to rob the store, and then I head for the door. The clerk asks if I want him to walk me out, and I say that I should be alright and begin walking away from the block. As I leave the store, the drifting man stops pacing and makes a beeline for me from the other end of the building. I seriously didn't think much of the guy at all up until this point, but for the first time he was briskly walking in a straight line towards me. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I start power walking so that he doesn't think I'm actively trying to escape him. Still trying to convince myself that I'm just being paranoid and should be more casual. I don't look behind me to see how close he is. I've reached the pavement on the other side of the gas pumps when I hear the clerk run outside. He's yelling at me, "Go! Run!" I make a break for it, looking over my shoulder. He's grabbed the man by his shoulders from behind. The balding man isn't even glancing behind him or trying to escape. He's just watching me run away. And that's pretty much the end of the story. I keep running until I've crossed the road and then turn around, standing still. The clerk is still just holding on to the odd staring man. The clerk and I are just looking at each other in bewilderment, not really knowing what to do. He makes a hand gesture to go and I gesture my thanks. I got back to Sally with the cash and bought food before walking back home a different way. So I am a college freshman in the South. I'm also a female. Before I begin this story, I'd like to give a description of myself. I am a short, chubby black female. When I say short, I believe I am just underneath average height, 5'4". Anyway, my college was across the street from a rundown gas station where I happened to work. On a night that I was working, my boss left me alone for that night because he hadn't gotten any sleep. Or so, that is what he said, but it was a pretty slow day. There wasn't a specific reason why it was slow, it just was. Anyway, I was playing Geometry Dash on my phone as I sat behind the counter. It wasn't a counter with the thick glass and speaking tube. It was just a regular counter. As I played my game, I had heard the door open with a little chime from the bells. I looked up to see a man about average height and very skinny, but for some reason a little intimidating. I was never the one to be afraid of anyone, so when I say he was intimidating, he was. He was balding with a little comb over. He had on a dinky white t-shirt with holes and dad jeans that were caked in a dark red substance and mud. He seemed as if he had just went hunting, but I'm not sure. He looked at me. His eyes were hollow and empty, but still. I smiled and said, "Hello, how are you?" Common Southern hospitality. He muttered something that I couldn't hear and went to the back of the store. I watched him for a while before I eventually had gotten bored and went back to my game. After about a minute of aggravation, I clicked off the game and went to scroll down Instagram. When I glanced up, he was standing behind the aisle, just watching me. Upon reflex, I put my head back down, looking at my phone, but something told me to look back up. When I did, he was standing at the counter holding gummy worms and a can of beer. "Did you find everything okay, sir?" I say, a little startled, but I was okay. He didn't say anything. He just dug through his pockets and pulled out a dirty $10 bill. "The total is $5.68, sir," I say as I grab the money, smiling at him. After I handed him back his change, out of nowhere he shouts, "I hate all of you blacks. You and the damn Mexicans." Taken back by his comment, I couldn't say anything. I was just stunned. "Oh, you don't got nothing to say, huh?" You blacks always have something to say. You never know when to shut your fucking mouths. I swear to God, if I could hang you, I would. I gasped and was about to tell him to get his fucking worms and can of beer and get the fuck out, but a few college guys burst through the damn door, alerting the both of us. He grabbed his shit and walked out. Luckily, I knew one of the college students was someone that I had known. "Hey there," he smiled, bringing me some Doritos and an Arizona iced tea. I guess the look on my face gave him an idea of how I was feeling. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No, that man that walked out said that he wished he could hang me. He started off with these racist comments. I didn't even do anything," I told him. I wasn't crying, I was just really mad. My friend asked me if he should go look for him, and I told him no. "I'll be fine," I assured him. He nodded and he asked me for a pen and paper. I ripped a piece of receipt paper off and handed him the counter pen. "Okay, call me if you need me," he says, writing his phone number down. His other friends came around with a bunch of food, and after that, they were on their way. After about 2 hours or so, my boss and another coworker came in, which means that I was off. I gathered my things, forgetting about the whole incident, and told them good day. I left and began my journey across the street. After about a good mile or so, I heard someone yell, "Hey sir, is there a reason for you to be here tonight?" I looked back to see campus security talking to a lanky man. My eyes began to focus into the darkness when I noticed it was the racist guy from the gas station. His eyes were locked on me and it made me even more uncomfortable. He didn't respond, which made it menacing enough for me to leave. I began to walk quicker to my dorm and just forget about the whole thing. He was caught, I was okay. Nothing else happened. The next day in the Union Center, I was doing some homework at a table and listening to some music when the guy that I know sat down. "Hey, so I'm glad you made it back okay." He smiles and I nodded. "Yeah, thanks." He sighs, because they found some guy on campus last night with a pistol and a hunting knife. My stomach dropped when he said that. He was the skinny white man and he kept mumbling some pretty racist shit under his breath, so I thought that was the guy that you told me about last night. He finished. I told him that I think it was and that he was following me back to my dorm last night. As I thought, he was also stunned for words. So did that fucked up racist dickhead weirdo. I really hope I'm fortunate enough to never encounter you again.